Greetings everyone and welcome in today's PECB webinar. My name is Gzim and I am the Portfolio Manager for IT Security at PECB. Today we will discuss about the webinar topic, Cybersecurity Testing. The webinar will be presented by PECB partner and trainer Mr. Donkers. Mr. Donkers is an experienced security consultant and has many years of experience on information security. Among many, he holds a certification on ISO 27001, ISO 27005 and ISO 31000. I hope this webinar will help you understand the cybersecurity testing process. If you have any question, you can write them at any time in question box right-hand control panel, or you can use the option to raise your hands and we will answer to all of them. Please, Arthur, you may proceed with the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Zim. Welcome everybody. I would like to share some of my experiences for security testing, technical security testing within an Agile and a cyber environment. So I hope I can trigger you to think about a lot of things, and maybe you recognize the things that we and my colleagues and I ran into. So as Gizem introduced me, my name is Arthur Donkers. I normally work as a security officer. I have some deep interest in infosecurity, information security. I come from a technological background, so I used to build computers myself, and then I started testing them for security leaks and security vulnerabilities. And I always feel that if you want to do proper information security, you need to combine technology with people and processes to make sure that you cover all bases in your ISO, in your security posture. And I believe that the ISO standards can help you develop a reliable and repeatable information security program. So in the end, I think that infosecurity is a means to an end, so it helps you provide business in a secure way, but infosecurity itself is not your end goal, in my humble opinion. And what I would like to do today with you is share a number of security testing experiences with you and how you can help them fit into your cyber strategy or your agile cyber strategy, because doing it the old way, I believe, no longer fits in that new approach and that new way of delivering products and delivering services. So what is this all about? Who am I? Out with the old and in with the new. That is in short the agenda for today. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please, as Gizim said, type them in the box and we can try to answer them at the end. I'll try to have some 5 or 10 minutes available for answering your questions. Well, security testing in cyberspace. The question I would like to answer with you today is, does the classical way of performing penetration testing still fit into the new way of doing delivery of products, developing software, and the ever-changing threat landscape we have in cyberspace? Does it still fit, or do we need a new approach? And the reason I included this picture with the guy with the hammer is that if the only thing you have is a hammer and then every problem looks like a nail, that is the question I would like to answer for security testing in cyberspace today. Well, I explained who I am. The only thing I would like to share with you, in addition to what I said before, is that I come from a technical background and have done a lot of penetration testing both on software and hardware platforms. So I run into a lot of problems during those tests, and I would like to share them with you. So this presentation is based on my personal experiences with my clients and my projects. Your situation may be different, but I hope I can get you to think about those things that you ran into or have run into for your own security program, and maybe we can help you find a better fit. So these are my experiences, but they may be your experience may be similar, and you can help the things that we did for this. So, and one final thing, I'm not a big fan of the term cyber. I know it draws a lot of people to your stands and to your presentation, but I think cyber itself is a little bit of an empty term. Cybersecurity is already a little bit more specific. So I think we need to be careful when we call things cyber or not, so we have to be careful about it. Okay, so what's the problem with your classical testing, with classic testing strategies? I think you can all recognize this waterfall delivery model in which you begin with requirements for a product or a service, then you make a design, and once the design is finished you start your implementation, and once the implementation has finished you start your verification. And verification can be that you test for performance and functionality, and somewhere at the end of that yellow step is some time reserved for doing security testing as well. And once all tests have passed and everything is good, then you can enter the operational phase where you do the maintenance. So, but you can see they're all isolated steps that deliver input from one step to another, but it's rather difficult to get back. So this means that for classical testing strategy that you often test after the delivery of a finalized product or service. And I hope it's before you actually deploy the service or the product, but I've seen that in many cases the project planning is something of a moving target. So if you're a security tester at the end of a delivery cycle, then more often than not there's not enough time to do proper testing. So people say, well, we deploy the product already and maybe we can test once the product has been deployed. So my experience is that you're always in a sort of crash zone within the time, the project planning, and more often than not the original 2 weeks testing, security testing time that you had hoped for is reduced to 1 or 2 days. A second problem with that classical testing strategy is that you are often asked to test only the new product or the new service that has been delivered or the new functionality within an existing service. So you only look at those new things, whereas a actual computer hacker or somebody who tries to break into your system or abuse your service doesn't have that scope limitation. They look at all the things and they look at the testing data that may be still available or the test server that is available. Well, as I said, it's always within a limited time frame. Even if you follow the proper project planning steps and you have your 2 weeks available, it's still only 2 weeks. Whereas a targeted hacker or your competitor or whoever you have to protect yourself against has more time and maybe an almost limitless amount of time available. And in the end, the last limitation of your classic testing strategy is always that you have limited resources available. You may have limited funds available for hiring pen testers. Maybe you have your own pen testers in your organization, but they are also spread thin because they have to do all the testing for all the other products as well. So apart from your time constraints and your scope constraints, you always have resource limits. You don't have limited people and limited amounts of money to do the testing. So you always have to make choices. So that leads to time crunching, which means that you have to make a choice. What are we going to test in the 2 weeks that we actually have available instead of the 2 days we have available? Instead of the 2 weeks that we wanted to have available, you have to leave certain features untested. You cannot test everything, so you have to make choices. There's always that scope limitation that you have to account for. You often test a product within its acceptance test environment or a dedicated security testing environment, but never in its final production environment where it is part of a larger network or a larger set of services that have been opened up to the internet. You may not have all the testers available that you want. For instance, if you have allocated 2 testers for 2 weeks, but your whole product delivery is postponed for a month, then the testers may no longer be available, which means that you have to either do with other testers or you have to resort to automated testing, which has limited availability, limited quality and limited results. And you may have to wait for another 2 or 3 months before a new test team is available. So it might be that if you actually have time to do the test or have the test performed, that you don't have the testers available that need to perform the test. And in the end, I think that is the biggest problem of all, that you may not have time to fix the things that are a result of your security test. So if you perform the test and they find all kinds of vulnerabilities, do you still have the time available to go back up the waterfall really and have things fixed, which may take a lot of time, maybe a month or 2 months, and you have to postpone your release of your product, but your marketing department has all kinds of things set in motion and they cannot turn it back. So there are also a lot of issues related to resolving issues from the security testing. So in the end, you get a feeling like you're trying to swim upstream, like a salmon here, and there are a lot of bears trying to catch you and trying to eat you. So it's a very difficult way of doing your testing and having reliable test results, but also being able to feedback the results and have them resolved in time before the actual product release on the internet or to your customers. And that's not only if you look at testing within a project setting, but also for your regular security testing that you should do from your security management and your daily or your yearly responsibility. The same issues, you limit the scope because you can't test everything. In my experience, people also limit the scope because they don't want you to test the scary stuff. I often hear, well, you cannot test that or that component because if you test it, it will crash. Well, I think if I can crash it, somebody else on the internet can crash it as well. So you should really test it and maybe fix it that it no longer crashes. In your regular testing cycle, you may also have not enough time and people available, and everything needs to be recertified yesterday because the auditor will be coming next week, and we forgot to actually execute the testing on a regular basis. So it all has to be done yesterday and the day before. And what I run into here in Holland is that they don't actually care about the actual results and execution, but it's more or less a tick in the box exercise that they need to have a pen test executed within a year, and they don't specify what kind of test and what kind of quality and what kind of depth and detail is required. So it's more or less a tick in the box exercise, because the auditor will tick have you done a pen test, yes or no, and if you can show them that you've done a pen test regardless of the quality and the detail and the depth, well, then you have satisfied the auditor. But in the end, have you really taken care of your own security? That's the question you need to ask yourself if you are following that tick in the box approach. So those are problems related to your security testing, and those are problems that are also present really in actual software development. So what happens is that they don't try to do it all at once, but make small incremental steps in developing new functionality in small steps up to the final delivery or the final set of functionality that you need to deliver. So you need to be more agile about your development environment, and that means that you have to fit your security testing strategy on that agile development process as well. So modern development of products needs to adapt quickly and follow a risk-based approach that applies to software development, and you can use the same approach for your security testing as well. So security testing needs to be integrated into the incremental and continuous delivery cycle that is Agile. So at the left you will see develop, test and deploy. That is the short cycle, and testing here is referred to as functional testing. So does the product do what I expect it to do? And you can make that deployment or that Agile cycle a little bit bigger by doing developing and testing obviously as well. Deploy it maybe to a staging environment that is a copy of your production environment, and then do your security check, and then do your deployment to production. And perhaps the things that are the results from your security check cannot be addressed in this cycle, but you have a list available that you can take to the next or the cycle thereafter to make sure that it is addressed before the final release or the final deployment to production. So those are the adaptations you can do within Agile and within your cyber security method to include security testing on a continuous, more or less continuous basis. And so security testing is not a separate step anymore. It follows at least also the risks that you have identified in your Agile cycle for the development. So if you say, well, if we develop this feature now, it's a bit of a risk, so we cut it up into smaller steps and smaller functionality blocks, then you can do your security testing in the same way. You don't test the big functionality block in its entirety, but you also cut it up into small pieces that you can manage, and that you know also that you have the people for, therefore, to do it, but also if there's some vulnerabilities coming from that security testing, you can include them in the next cycle to have fixed. And the only thing you can do, the best way to do that is by embedding security testers in your product. So you always have the right people available at the right time, and that does mean that you need some people with some additional skills. So preferably your security testers also have experience in developing software, so they know where to look for vulnerabilities, and they know where to look for things that can go wrong. And that also means that you, following that Agile principle, that you have to focus on specific issues, probably related to the risks in your to-do list and your backlog, and you have to always set priorities. You cannot guarantee 100% security, not in Agile and not in your classic approach, but by following the risk-based approach, you can at least address the most important things that you need to check. So those are the focus and priorities, and if you can automate things by using tools and other stuff, then please do, because that frees up your security testers, the time of your security testers for testing other things. So automation and tooling is an important support for your security test. It saves you a lot of human time that you can dedicate to more creative testing things. And this is an example. What I have seen in some of my customers' environments is that you put all your code in GitHub, and you use all kinds of automated tools to build your service. You can do automated builds using tools like Jenkins, and you can deploy them to a cloud before testing, and you got 2 or 3 testing environments that you can use for those testing. And once that is cleared, or there are no vulnerabilities that you no major vulnerabilities anymore, then you could do an automated deployment to your production environment. And those are all maintained by tools. And your tooling for security testing could also be that you do automated code reviews from the code that has been checked into GitHub. For instance, if you have a nightly build for your product, you can also include unit testing within that automated build, but you can also do static statistics-based and static code analysis. So that will at least give your code a certain security level, and all the other security testing is then done in the dynamic testing environment, maybe the first one or the second one, and there you can test more for the dynamic vulnerability that might be present by doing improper authentication, improper authorization, or maybe you can reuse old cookies from an old session to get access to the session of another user. But those are all dynamic testing that can be done by your testers, but your static code analysis has already been automated while doing your nightly builds from your code repositories. So if you have if you want to do that in such an agile environment, you should do it on a different way. It's no longer a product or project-based security testing, but you have to apply a more continuous testing model. That means that you can employ or deploy a red team, a security team, which really is a simulation of a hacker that has hacked into your environment, and it is a continuous testing thing. So it's not, well, we hire a red team for 2 days and then we are secure. No, it's a continuous thing. That red team is always testing aspects in your infrastructure and in your application. And you don't want to limit the scope of that red team, because a hacker doesn't have scope limits either. So you want to give them almost free range on your network to do all kinds of security testing, and also find where all those old servers are that have been forgotten to patch and that have an old version of your application available with all kinds of vulnerabilities in there, because hackers look at your network in the same way. So if you have a red team, which is your own hired hacker for doing things like that, then the red team looks at your network and your vulnerabilities in the same way a hacker does. So that gives you a lot more security value for your money. It looks not only at that limited scope of your project, but it looks on your whole network, and that means that they will also generate a lot of vulnerabilities and risks, and you have to manage them as well. So your red team is finding all kinds of vulnerabilities on your network, and then you need to act upon those vulnerabilities and things that they have found. So it is a continuous model. It's no longer a small step in a waterfall or a level in a waterfall, but it is something that is going on in a continuous way. So what is that red team exactly? Well, penetration testers assess organization security often unbeknownst to client staff. So they find things that nobody knew were there. An old server, an old application, somebody puts their own copy of the website on the server on the desk. So all those things that you normally don't expect, and that might not even be present in your configuration database or somewhere else, they will find it for you. And this type of red team provides a more realistic picture of the security readiness than simple exercises or announced assessments, with a limited scope. So the red team may trigger active controls and countermeasures within a given operational environment. That means that they really are working like a hacker in your environment, and you can also use them to test your detection methods. If the red team finds all kinds of things, all kinds of vulnerabilities, and your expensive SIEM or your intrusion detection doesn't throw any alerts, then there might be something wrong with your SIEM or your intrusion detection as well. So they have a broader scope than just only finding vulnerabilities. You can also use them to test your detective and corrective measures. So this definition comes from Wikipedia. I believe it originally comes from the military, where you have red teams that are simulating attackers and blue teams that are simulating defenders. That is, if I recall correctly, where the term red team comes from. So a red team is a simulated attack without the limitations of a regular penetration test, so you get better and more complete results. So it's really a simulated hacker attack, but by guys you can trust, and you can make sure that they don't break things or put them on the internet or sell all your customer data to the Russians, for instance, or other people that may pay a lot of money for that. So it's a simulated attack, but by people you can trust. And that continuous security testing is really taking that red team approach a step further in doing that on a permanent basis within your organization. And you might even do a lot of things automated by using tools, but at the end of the day, you always need a person to for their creativity and their hacker way of thinking, by thinking outside the box and trying to find flaws and other vulnerabilities that you didn't think of. And this means that your continuous security testing becomes part of your operational security process. It's part of your vulnerability management, and it gives you almost a real-time and continuous view on your security posture. That helps you make decisions what you want to fix first and what you want to fix later, or maybe you don't want to fix at all, but it gives you a reliable way of looking at the technical security of your whole infrastructure. And it allows you to put your dollars or your euros or your yens or your rubles or wherever they have the most effect and provide you with the most security. And actually, in my opinion, it fits very well in the continuous improvement, which is an important part of your ISO 27001 security management system. The security management system asks you to look at ways of improving your security, and this is one way of making that happen. So is that everything you need to do? Well, I don't think so, because there is a lot of potential out there on the internet as well, so there is more you can do. Well, what can you do then? Well, as we know, everybody has limited resources, people, time and money. So what you see now, there's a lot of companies that already have made a bug bounty program, and a bug bounty program is really leveraging the hacker community on the internet and rewarding them for finding bugs in your software and reporting them to you. So what you really do with the bug bounty program is reward hackers for reporting bugs, and those hackers, they have the time and dedication to look for those bugs. They want to spend 2 or 3 weeks on finding that one SQL injection or cross-site scripting in your web applications. But you must make sure that you set the right terms and conditions, that you allow them to report those bugs to you, and make sure that you can handle them in your incident process or whatever, and that you have also the availability of people for judging the quality of those bug reports that will be coming in. And if you do it properly, if you can extend really your red team or your continuous testing team with all the hackers out there on the internet. So that's the way you create some sort of leverage, and you extend your red team probably by maybe a factor of 100, because there are so many hackers out there that are willing to look for bugs and get a reward for that. But you must make sure that you have some things in place. You must have a responsible or a disclosure policy available. You have to allow those hackers to report those bugs to you. And what they often want or expect is a reward system. You must make sure that you reward them accordingly to the things that they find, and that you have a process of separating the good from the bad, the wheat from the chaff, so the good things from the bad things. And you need to make sure that your incident process is running smoothly, because some things may go wrong or will go wrong, and some of those hackers will trigger alarms. So you must make sure that you can respond to everything that you will start seeing in a proper way. And that responsible disclosure must enable all those hackers out on the internet to report bugs and vulnerabilities to you without punishing the guy or the girl who reports it. You need to make sure that they can do it in a safe and sometimes in an anonymous way, and that you have clear communication protocols, that everybody knows what happens if they report a bug to you. And that will help you in resolving bugs and vulnerabilities before somebody else really abuses them. So if you have a good policy and a good process in responding to bugs that have been reported to you, you can benefit from that timely way. Often if you put out a new version of your application on the internet or your web app, it might be so that reports and vulnerabilities will be coming in within 24 hours after releasing that new version. So that is really saving you a lot of time and problems in the near future. And you can run your own bug bounty program, excuse me, but there are already specialized companies out there that can help you or run a completely program for you, like HackerOne. Those guys can help you set up a responsible disclosure policy and run your whole bug bounty program as well. And as I said, you need to make sure that your incident handling process is up to snuff, that it works and that it's working smoothly. So in a continuous security testing strategy, the incident handling is necessary to catch all things that might slip through the cracks. So if you miss something in your testing, or if you haven't tested something yet, but there are already bugs coming in or incidents happening, you need to make sure that you handle them correctly. And things that slip through the cracks are not really an omission, but it's always a result of the fact that you cannot test and secure everything. So if you cannot test and secure everything, you need to prepare for incidents that can happen. But by doing that in a controlled way, following your incident handling process, you have prepared yourself for situations like that. And these are some of the steps that you normally should follow while doing that incident handling. Somebody reports an incident. That can be some internal department, or that can be your friendly bug bounty hacker from outside. You need to assess what is the impact of this incident, resolve and escalate it in the proper way, monitor the progress in resolving it, and then do a lessons learned session to resolve it and to make sure that you have actually addressed the root cause of the incident. So that's your post-incident review, and once that is done, you can start the whole cycle all over again. And by doing that in a controlled and clear manner, then everybody can benefit from the process by resolving your incidents quickly and in a controlled way. And a way, by the way, if you are into the ISO standards, there is now a new ISO standard available. I believe it's ISO 27035 that will help you build your own incident handling process. So if you're looking for a way of embedding that within your ISO 27001 ISMS, I would ask you to look at the 27035 standard for that one. So that fits within your ISO ISMS really nicely. So wrapping up, I believe that in that new way of doing things, the old school testing does not fit the bill anymore. It's always too little, too late. You should move to a continuous testing approach, and in that approach, think like a hacker by using the red team approach. You can add or extend your red team by leveraging the hacker community through proper bug bounty programs, and you should prepare for incidents that will happen and that will report vulnerabilities and other things to you. And if you can handle them in a controlled way, that is also an addition to your security, being in control of your security. So if you want to know a little bit more about those Agile things, there's a website out there, www.agilesecurity.nl. I run that with a friend of mine, Pascal de Koning, and we are writing an article in English as well on this whole subject. So if you are interested, please come back in a week or two, and we can provide you with an English article on that whole subject. Yeah, this finishes my presentation. I thank you for your attention, and I believe we have some time available now for answering questions that that you might have. So I would like to give back the microphone to Kazim, and see if you have any questions for us.
Thank you, Arthur, for your presentation. We want to inform you that PCB provides a training and certification services for ISO 27032 Lead Cybersecurity Manager. It enables the participants to develop the knowledge and the competence needed to support an organization in implementing and managing a cybersecurity program based on ISO 27032 and NIST cybersecurity framework. The exam and the certification fees are included in the training price, and also participation certificate of CPD will be issued to participant. For more information, please visit our website pcb.com on the training section. Now we will go ahead with questions that we have received. So the first one is, what should be the frequency of testing performed, and what if we identify a threat? Should we try to isolate it, or we have to widen the scope of test?
Okay, this is more coming also from the classical approach, but if you adapt to the continuous testing approach, you don't have real isolated steps anymore. But what you should do is test in a continuous way. But what you should do is at least address all of your systems once a year. So if you have a continuous testing team or a red team available, they should look at all your systems at least once a year, and maybe some systems more often because they are more critical to your business. And if you encounter new threats, you can always have your red team focus on that threat at the moment that you think it's happening. So you can, because they are not limited to that scope, you can always have them look at high priority things at the moment that you need that. So, and then look at that in from a technical point, or find all the systems that might be vulnerable to that threat. So by using that red team approach, you have more flexibility and you can react quicker to threats that are occurring either on your internal network or on your internet connection or wherever they come from. So it gives you more flexibility, and it is a sort of quick response team to new threats that are being discovered or being manifest themselves.
Okay, thank you, Arthur. Now, second question is, based on your experience, what could be the better automated tool which continuously give us information on our system condition?
Okay, so I'm not related to any vendor of automated tools, but there are a lot of companies like Tenable, Qualys, Rapid7 that offer you automated tools for doing security testing. And then there are also a number of dedicated firms like HP that have a tool like WebInspect for testing your web servers, but that's the automated testing part, so you can look into those. What you also should do is have a logging and monitoring service in place that monitors the behavior of your critical servers, and that enables you to generate alerts if something happens on that server that you don't expect, or that might be an indication of of somebody trying to hack into your server. So you need to do it from a testing point of view, and there are a number of good tools available, and you should also approach it from the logging and monitoring view, and there are also good tools available for that one as well, like ArcSight and Splunk and tools like that allow you to monitor the behavior of your systems, and any deviations from that normal behavior can be reported as well.
Okay, once again, thank you, Arthur, for sharing this highly informative presentation, and I also want to thank all the attendees for joining us live today. I strongly hope you had a chance to learn many new things today on cybersecurity testing. Also, I suggest you take time and see our future webinars that we will be hosting. Next Wednesday, we will host a webinar topic which is called Improve Cybersecurity Posture by using ISO 27032. You can also take time and visit our website at pcb.com on the webinar section to register for our future webinars. Thank you once again and hope to meet you soon on our future webinars.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.